Hello everyone, it's me Arden Lee. I'm back with another video today, and in today's video I want to talk about healing from codependency, something that I have some personal experience with. First, if you have not yet done so already, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. I love getting those notifications that new people have signed up. I love hearing that this is landing with you guys. Let me know what you think, leave some comments on the videos, let me know if this is helpful material. And yeah, let's stay connected. So for today, I want to talk about healing from codependency. And I was just speaking about this yesterday with my own coach, Catherine Girardi, and she referred to it this way that was so brilliant. She said, I work with so many people, women especially, and I call this, it's like the unbreakable spell. It's that they know that this way of being isn't serving them, that they're so, compelled to these emotionally unavailable men in their lives who are not stepping up, who are not meeting them where they feel they should be met, and yet they almost can't help themselves but pursue them. It's kind of like almost like they're walking around like zombies, like they're possessed by another force. And I said, funny you should mention that. I think it's really interesting. I said, when I was in those kinds of relationships, I was certainly in several relationships throughout my 20s, and up through I would say end of 2015, where I was with people who were really not showing up and committing to me, and in some cases who were even acting almost like they were ashamed of me, like they were keeping me a secret. And I kept showing up and hoping that if I changed my behavior, if there was something that I could possibly do differently, then maybe this would change the outcome. And ultimately it was my algorithm that was faulty. My mom actually said something to me at the end of my last kind of toxic relationship. My mom finally said, she said, honey, he's a broken vending machine. You can keep popping quarters in all day long and nothing's going to come out. And I think that was, when I really settled into the energy behind that statement, that was really correct, because I kept trying, like, not only did I keep trying quarters, I kept trying like different kinds of coins, being like, which one is going to work? Like, what's going to stick? What do I have to do on my end? What variable can I put into this equation that will get this person to value me? And ultimately, what I didn't see was that was the variable that was actually throwing me off, was that anytime I have to step outside myself and say, what do I have to do differently to get this person to value me, then I'm already in the wrong territory, right? So, but unfortunately at the time that was not the case. And if you guys have been following my videos, especially in the past week or two, I've started talking a lot about the new things that I'm learning about addiction recovery in Maya Salovitz's book, Unbroken Brain, a revolutionary new way of understanding addiction. And I've been looking at that, and there's so much there where she talks about, I think probably watching those other videos would give a more comprehensive understanding, because I get to go into it a little more. But in summary, she talks about the fact that our society so often demonizes either the person or the substance. They either say, you have a broken brain, so therefore you are an addict, or they say that substance is addictive and you should stay away from that substance. When in reality, it's kind of neither of those things. It's actually about us as human beings and our patterns and the way that we learn to seek out things that feel soothing at the time, at least when we first try them. For some reason, oh my gosh, this drug made me feel amazing the first time I took it. I'm going to keep taking it, even though over time its effects on me are going to get worse and worse, and I'm going to get less and less satisfaction from it. I still can't stop. And what's really remarkable to me about this, you guys, is that when I was at the end of a really toxic relationship in 2009, I was financially supporting this person while he was abusing me, and I read an article, remarkably, by the same author, Maya Salovitz, in Elle magazine, and it was about dopamine, and it was about where it was about the studies of Kent Berridge and and his colleagues and associates. And essentially what they found was that dopamine has traditionally been thought of as the pleasure chemical in our brains, and that's actually not true. It actually doesn't account for any of our enjoyment of things, as they found out, in a study where they gave rats, they suppressed their dopamine levels or not, and they found out that dopamine actually affects whether the rats will seek out food, whether they will have a craving for something, whether they have that pleasure of the chase, of the hunt, right, that they want something. That dopamine is actually responsible for wanting, not satisfaction. That actually lowering rats' dopamine levels, once you put the food in front of them, if they're like, oh, there's food, I should eat it, they showed all the signs, all the mannerisms of their enjoying something as normal. So therefore this idea that wanting something and being satisfied by something are two very different things. So let me explain a little bit why this relates to codependency, because I'm carrying a lot of big ideas with me right now in a way that I want to unpack in a way that's very clear. There's a lot of dots I've been connecting in my mind over the past couple of years, and I read that article about dopamine, at the end of this toxic relationship that I was in, and I recognized myself. I said, I still crave this person. I still need this person around. I feel very dependent on this person because I'm financially supporting him and he's still abusing me. But I'm not getting any enjoyment out of this. Why am I doing this? And what does this even mean for relationships in general? What if I, what if I get with a person because I want them, and over time my wanting for them goes up and my satisfaction goes down? And that probably should have been a really big clue, but none of us had the wherewithal then. None of us, I don't think, to my understanding, had the resources to even understand how this pattern of codependency could show up in the same vein of addiction research that I was reading, and what the solution was ultimately going to be to that. But what I started to notice was that, speaking of addiction, speaking of codependency, and speaking of codependency being that unbreakable spell that, walking around under the influence of something else that is compelling you to do something outside yourself. When I was at my worst, I was, the way that I viewed it was, I was addicted to surrender. I was addicted to obedience. I really wanted, I identified as kinky. I was in the BDSM world. I identified as a submissive, and essentially, what I did is I used my submissive orientation as a way of justifying the fact that I didn't have any personal boundaries and would allow someone to do whatever they wanted to me, if it meant that I was being pleasing to them, or I would do whatever they told me to do, if it was, as long as I was being pleasing to them, that was the only thing that mattered to me. And so I don't know if you guys have seen Jessica Jones. It's the TV show, the Marvel TV show on Netflix. It came out a couple of years ago, I want to say around 2016 maybe, and I only watched the first 2 episodes because it was kind of triggering for me. But essentially, what happens in Jessica Jones in those first 2 episodes anyway, what is established about the story is that Jessica Jones has this ex-boyfriend whose superpower is mind control, and he can influence people to crave doing his bidding so badly that they will literally scratch at the walls in order to get that task done. And I looked at it and I saw myself, and I suddenly was put in the mind of an article that Russell Brand had written about addiction. I believe that he wrote this as a sort of essay eulogy for Amy Winehouse, and he was speaking about his own struggles with recovery. And he talks about this moment where he's in recovery, he's got a great career, he's got so much wealth and abundance, and he's watching a video of himself at some old dirty flat he used to live in, and he's smoking whatever it is that he's smoking, probably heroin, I think was his drug of choice, if I remember correctly. And he's, smoking out of light bulb and tinfoil, and in this, dirty apartment, and he's totally just broke and wasted on heroin. And he said in the essay, he said, you would think that I would have been watching this video of myself from this place where I'm recovered, where I'm successful, and I would have thought, wow, good for me, I'm doing better now, so clearly I'm in a better place, and that's I'm so happy. But really, he said, what I actually thought was I was actually jealous of the former version of myself that still got to do heroin. That's how good it was. Despite all of my success, despite all of my abundance and being in a better place in my life, I was still jealous that the former me got to do that still. And that's how I felt watching Jessica Jones. I felt jealous that I was, now in recovery and saying I'm not going to just do that anymore. I'm not just gonna be in these unhealthy relationships that are clearly not serving me. I'm not just gonna be mindlessly obedient anymore because it's clearly not working for me. And I watched Jessica Jones, and it was just like I was like, oh God, I miss that. Like I miss that feeling. So I think there's more links between addiction and codependency than we necessarily realize. That doesn't mean that I'm demonizing, relationships as like, oh, they're addictive, the addictive substances, right? Because there's so much fear mongering around addiction. But it actually means looking at what addiction really is, which is learning a pattern and continuing to do something over and over again and feeling compelled to do it even when it no longer serves you. And I think that in our codependency, that really that pattern is present in the same way that it is with addiction. In my kind of new belief and understanding, again, without the fear mongering behind addiction, the way that the media loves to portray it as sensational, but still looking at essentially what functions as the same sort of patterns. And so more and more understanding is now being invited and called for about the ways that all of these things function, so we can actually figure out ways of dealing with them that are useful. So I hope this is useful. And essentially, for me, what I had to finally decide for myself is I had to have this moment of surrender. I had to decide to break the unbreakable spell. And I've worked with clients before who have suffered similar things, and we've gotten to that point, where essentially it's like I was like, what am I missing here? Like we both know whenever we jump on the phone that when you go back to this guy, or you reach out to this guy, that it always makes you feel terrible. You never end up feeling better. You go and you reach out to him trying to feel better, and you always end up feeling worse. And no matter how many times it happens, you keep doing it. So without placing any blame, how can I help you? How can I help you not do this? What is something that's finally going to work? And I actually said to one of my clients, I was like, I'm stumped. I feel like I'm failing you as a coach. I'm not blaming you for your behavior, but there's clearly something here that we have not hacked yet. And in a weird way, actually, even just voicing that actually made a lot of improvements, because she finally realized, just how drastic that spiral she was in was. And ultimately in committing and saying, okay, I'm going to let it not get any worse. I'm going to let this be rock bottom. I'm going to start climbing my way out. And it requires this degree of surrender that is like, I have to let go of everything I thought I knew, hi Virgil, about life and love and relationships. And I have to, or I'm being invited to, I'm choosing to just be open and let the universe send to me what it's going to send to me. So that means a few things. That means, first of all, you have to prioritize your own well-being over and your own emotional state over the state of whether you're in a relationship. And that's tough because especially if you're a woman, though of course in other ways if you're a man as well, you've been conditioned to believe that having a relationship makes you legitimate, and that there are ways that you are stigmatized for being single, or at least judged or kind of like looked at as maybe being why are you single? Why aren't you, like, are you undesirable? Is there something wrong with you? Are you too alternative? Are you a rebel? Like, why don't you fit into society's box, right? So there's a lot of reasons that people carry fears about not being in a relationship because of course, society tells you, that that's where your value is and your validation comes from. Unfortunately, what that means though is that a lot of people end up getting into relationships that actually make them feel terrible. And they prioritize the way that they're perceived over, perceived by society or perceived by their peers and their family over the way that they actually feel on the inside. And even when they, start dating someone who maybe does give them that fix and they really feel genuine about, oh wow, I like this, I want more of this. Again, if that thing is not compatible, if it's not a compatible fit for you to actually be in a serious relationship together, then what's going to happen is you're going to get addicted to that fix, right? You're going to feel that that same sort of like, I want more of this, I want more of this person, even when they're not satisfying me, because my brain has learned that I go to this person and I get that fix. And even after the honeymoon phase has worn off, even after, maybe this person has actually started not treating me very well, or maybe at the very least we're seeing these ways in which we're not compatible and we're trying to make this fit, and so we're compromising ourselves and going out of our integrity in order to make a square peg fit into a round hole, or we're having fights all the time, or we're feeling abandoned, or we're feeling like, oh, this guy or that person, that girl or whatever is not here for us, not showing up for us. And what can I do? How can I bend in order to get more of this fix again? How can I score that high that I thought I had when I first started dating them? And ultimately, what this means is, I know it's so obvious, you guys, but it means that we have to be okay on our own. And so that's the first thing, is, finding our own self-sufficiency. And for me, that was easy in terms of finances. That was easy in terms of, I live alone and I have no problem supporting myself, because, my particular patterns for how I was raised caused me to become very self-sufficient. So, there were some good things about that and some bad things. I also tend to isolate and not let people in, but, working on that. But at the very least, I know that I can trust myself to sustain myself. And unfortunately, I've also, trusted myself to sustain other people who did not necessarily warrant my caretaking for many of my toxic relationships. And so that is, so that's the first thing. But also within that, don't fall into the trap that I fell into, believing that just because I had established my own material self-sufficiency, that I had also established emotional self-sufficiency as well. Because I was lying to myself, saying no, look, I'm fine. Look, I have my own apartment. I'm cool. I don't depend on anybody. I've got all my own stuff, and that part was true. But I was really not able to relax or self-soothe or just exist without worrying about being abandoned. And that was really. That was just a plague. That was just, it was a terrible way to live. There was so much anxiety and so much depression that came out of that. And so if you can find a way to not do that, it's really helpful. So the way that I chose to not do that is I surrendered everything. I sat with all of my discomfort and I said, all right, I'm going to stop wasting my time. I'm going to stop trying to make these relationships fit that clearly are not a fit, because this is not actually what love is supposed to be like. This is actually not what this is fucked up. This is not healthy. When I keep having this idea in my mind of the dream of something one day could be, if this other person finally gets their shit together or whatever, and I'm not owning where I'm actually choosing that person who doesn't have their shit together, and I'm just as much responsible for the failure of this relationship through my own choices to be with someone who clearly is not in alignment with being with me, who doesn't want to commit to me, who does keep abandoning me, or who does keep mistreating me. I'm making that choice as well. So I had to surrender everything I knew. I had to say okay, fine, I know nothing, Jon Snow. Teach me, universe. And from there, I really decided that the way I feel was paramount, and I worked on noticing all of the things that made me happy. If you guys want to watch my other how to be happy videos, how to cultivate happiness, how to look for the ones on emotional well-being, look for the ones on discernment and staying happy, right? Really tapping into to what your body is feeling in the moment. Because I guarantee you, when you're being abused and abandoned over and over again, your body is really not feeling good. But your anxiety, your dopamine craving is saying, no, I need more of this. And whatever I need to do, I need to endure whatever in order for me to get this fix. And unfortunately, that's just it's just not a healthy recipe, and that's not going to lead to the relationship that you do ultimately want. So finding that way to find peace and to find stillness, finding that way to place your focus on, it sounds so cheesy, right? Place your focus on your career, place your focus on your work or whatever. But for me, finding those things that I was really passionate about, and putting my sexual energy in particular into things like my music, my creativity, into, getting excited about about, being able to teach these things, getting passionate. I like coming on here and talking all the time. It's great. Like, I feel energized. That helps me feel more grounded when I do those things. So doing those things is also incredibly important. And even in moving on from that, then you establish this boundary with yourself, and you say, I'm not going to be with anyone whose behavior is going to keep making me feel bad over and over again. I'll give people some chances. Maybe I give them the benefit of the doubt the first time that they hurt me, that maybe they didn't know any better. Maybe it's something that I don't want to expect people to read my mind. I have to tell them what makes me happy. But certainly, if I see those things that are flat out red flags, like lying to me or even lying to other people, right? There have been guys that, right as I was on the cusp of this breakthrough and healing, there were other people that I was sort of like looking at possibly dating, and I found out they were lying to other people that they were with, and my pattern would have been like, well, I'll be the one who's different, right? And I was like, no, I don't want to go there. I don't need to go there. You should be. I want my partner to be someone who treats everyone with respect. And what really finally did it for me is deciding that, really leaning into that archetype of what I wanted in a partner. And I was like, I want someone who cares whether I'm hurting or not, who cares whether their behavior is hurting me, who cares about my well-being. I'm not someone who's going to go and act like a spoiled brat and ask for my every need to be met. If anything, I have trouble asking for my needs to get met in the first place. I actually have trouble figuring out what my needs are because I've repressed them for so long, for having a childhood where, my needs were framed as things that were potential dangers to me, So so I'm certainly going to be reasonable about what it is that I expect, but ultimately I had to decide, I want a partner who wants me to be happy. I want a partner who also thrives on my happiness, and that is mutual together, and that we're both making that choice to be happy together. And I want someone who wants me. I want someone where there's no question, where there's anything that I could do. Not that I'm going to go off and like be an asshole just to test them or anything, but anywhere where I could make mistakes, and I could fuck up, and I could, I could be lazy. I could throw on sweatpants. I could, I could whatever it is that I'm doing, that I don't have to live up to these huge standards that I had set for myself, that I'm actually, choosing to call in a partner who loves me in that manner. And when you're way back in that place where things don't feel good, that can feel really impossible. That can feel like, oh my God, well, that's just never going to happen for me. I got really defensive about that when people suggested that I only be submissive to partners who had already proven themselves. And I was like, well, then I'm just never going to get my submissive needs met. You're just kink shaming me. You're just telling me like, but really, I mean, they were right. Not everybody deserved my submission. Not everyone deserved my handing over my agency to them and letting them drive me. Not everybody deserved my service. Some of them were just using it because I let them. So, that is what it is. But ultimately, you have to prize your own happiness, and you have to prize your own emotional well-being over, the fix that you're getting from a partner. And once that really lands for you, once that really feels like you're like, oh my gosh, every time I do that thing where I'm chasing after someone again, where I'm being pulled out of my integrity in order to get them to somehow want me more, value me more, I'm actually blocking up the manifestation pipe of my actual partner who really, truly, unconditionally loves me. I'm blocking that from coming in by wasting my energy going here and here and here. When that person comes in, when that person arrives in my life, they're not going to want to see me chasing down a whole bunch of fuckboys for validation. Like that's going to just say to them that I'm not ready for a real relationship, right? I have to own where that really is for me. So that is how I broke the unbreakable spell. I suddenly decided that anyone who was going to come into a relationship and hurt me wasn't actually worthy of my figuring out how to get them to treat me better. I actually decided that pain is boring, that I've been hurt by men in pretty much every possible way that it is possible to be hurt by a man in a relationship. And I'm done with that now. I've experienced it all. I've gotten it out of my system. Thank you for all the lessons it taught me. And, here I am on earth, and I can say that I had that experience while I was here in my human body. And that's great, and, and now I'm ready to move on to something new and something different. So the thing that impresses me now is actually someone who does treat me better. I'm no longer impressed by the destructive, charismatic but destructive qualities of someone who's being toxic with me. I'm no longer hooked on that fix. I'm actually really much more impressed by someone who is showing up and wants to treat me well. I don't expect perfection. I don't expect someone to show up with no mistakes, but I do expect good intentions and clear communication, and a modicum of investment and effort into making that intention a reality. So that is how I figured that part out, and I hope this is helpful for you. And just so you know, it always looks like that journey is going to be really, really difficult at the offset. And I'm not saying that it wasn't challenging, but it's been the most rewarding thing that I've ever done. And I certainly often wish I had done it a lot sooner. So if you're on that precipice and you're really thinking like, okay, am I ready to finally like surrender all of my patterns and get ready to actually get serious about loving myself and putting myself first, and establishing that emotional well-being, that emotional self-sufficiency before I allow someone to come in and give me that fix that could potentially, it's like, when you feel that emptiness, then anyone who comes in to fill that is going to be something that you're going to go chasing after, which means that your baseline life that you establish is really the barometer for your relationships after that, right? You have to have a sustainable baseline, so that anyone who comes into your life, that you're so happy by yourself as it is, that any relationship you decide to give your time to is only going to be something that adds to that, not something that detracts from it. And to cultivate the mindfulness to know when that's happening, which is also not always easy, because sometimes those things are insidious and they crop up. But just having that mindfulness to know, like, I don't think that looks okay. That looks kind of not okay to me. Let me speak up about that. And then if I keep seeing this pattern, and if I keep seeing it spiral down, then I'm for sure going to end it. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. It's a lot that I'm still unpacking around all of it, and as more and more of it becomes clear, I'm sure you'll be hearing more and more of it from me here on this channel. So do subscribe, do stay in touch, and let me know if this helped. Thank you so much.